So amid the chaos of this past week in college football, you would think fans would stop saying something is a done deal because nothing is settled until the ink has dried and the expiration date is passed. You think you know something, but until the fat lady sings, everything is on the table. And that's the way you have to view what's going on at Coral Gables, as Cam Ward is not going to the NFL draft and instead will be sitting up for Mario Cristobal in the ACC, hoping to lead the Hurricanes to a conference title. What does this mean for Miami? What are the expectations now for Mario Cristobal in year 3? And was Cam Ward the right quarterback to lead the charge? Let's talk about that and a bunch more. But if you're new here, well, welcome on into the channel, people. My name is Cole Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football daily simply because the clock has struck 0 on 2023. Nah, it doesn't mean we're going to stop doing content. So if you need your daily dose of college football, this is a channel made for you. Why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. We got live shows planned. We got a banner. We'll be recapping 2023. The transfer portal is about to run rampant with all these coaching searches. We got to talk about the coaching vacancies that are going to be made available. We're going to do all that, a bunch more. So you should hit the subscribe button down below. Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, your best of bros, Miami fans, ACC faithful, and college football aficionados everywhere about this channel, because we are on the race to become the #1 YouTube show talking college football daily. Go ahead and follow me on social media. I call it Twitter. You can call it X. We all call it Instagram, at Mr. Cole Thompson. That way, conversations surrounding our favorite sport never have to stop flowing. So Cam Ward, for those of you that don't know who he is an established quarterback and a pretty decent one to say the least. Starts off his career at FCS Incarnate Word, then his head coach gets the OC job at Washington State underneath Jake Dickert. So he hitches his wagon to the coach and then starts to do the exact same thing now in Pullman. Has 48 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, over 4,000 passing yards, almost 7,000 passing yards, 65.5 completion percentage, and then he says he's going to go into the transfer portal and have some conversations and eventually comes out with a video that says, I will be declaring for the NFL draft. Here's the part that a lot of people missed. He did not hire an agent. So when you don't hire an agent, you still can really do whatever you want. You can withdraw your name for the NFL draft. You can go back to Pullman, Washington if you so see it, or you can go elsewhere. And that's ultimately what happened. Miami now, they feel very confident about having who is running the show at quarterback. And there is a proof of concept that a player like Cam Ward should be successful in a Shannon Dawson offense. Very spread out, very up-tempo, very go, slinging around the yard. And this is a quarterback that now Mario Cristobal and Shannon Dawson are both hitching their wagon to. They like the quarterback room in general, I would say so. They went out, they added in the kid from Albany, one of the best FCS passers in the recent year. But a guy like Cam Ward, this was the #1 veteran quarterback in the transfer portal. According to 247 Sports, he was #3, only behind Aiden Childs and Dante Moore. But both of them are very much unknown commodities. We don't understand what they will be at the next level. We know what Cam Ward can be. A difference maker, a gunslinger, and the ability to actually score inside the red zone with his legs. 10 total touchdowns in 2 years. Guy's got a little bit of juice to his game when it comes to the open field. So what does this mean for Miami? Well, a lot of people are probably going to say, Miami, they just don't know how to recruit talent. Well, they do. They get top 10 players every single year, and they always find their way to somewhere in the top 15 status of recruiting markets. Well, they don't know how to develop talent. That's a question that still is left to be undetermined because year 1 was about establishing your culture underneath Mario Cristobal. Year 2 was about building off said culture. And year 3 is where you want to see everything unfold. The fruits of your labor have culminated, and now you view yourself as a legit contender. These are now supposed to be 10-2 seasons, 11-1 seasons, top 25 offenses, and the numbers that you bring in on the recruiting trail are supposed to now reap the benefits and become highly productive players and staples for your franchise. That's the way that I view Miami going into this year. But now you're bringing in a veteran quarterback, a guy who could have gone pro, but decided it's best for me to come back for one more year, play in this style of offense, maybe get some accolades in the process, and along the way, boost up my draft grade. So now expectations are changing. Or are they? In my opinion, no matter what you were going to say, who was going to be your starting quarterback, which players you landed via the portal, who left in the portal, whatever the case was, everyone was expecting this to be a big-time year for Shannon Dawson, for Mario Cristobal, and for the Hurricanes in general, especially now knowing that a 12-team playoff exists. And so a lot of people are now going to point to Miami and say, well, Cole, they just spent a lot of money to go get a quarterback. And I can tell you this much, you know it was going to cost you a pretty penny. If Matt Rule does anything good for the game of college football, which he does all the time, actually, but if Matt Rule did anything for the notion of college football, he spoke from the heart and he told the truth. It will cost you $1 million+ to land a solidified quarterback in today's game, primarily due to NIL funds and the transfer portal. And naturally, when a quarterback goes to the NFL draft and turns down Florida State, turns down Ohio State, turns down USC, and all these other programs to where he could have eventually been the guy to go to the pros, you know that Miami was going to go ahead and add in some money. So all those fans out there, they're going to say this to me. Cole, Miami spent money to go get a starting quarterback. Here's my thought process. And that's the game of college football these days. Whether or not we agree with the notion and how things are going to start unraveling on our front, this is the new norm of college football. You're going to have to spend money. And this is not uncommon in college football at all, especially when you look at some of the young guns. Dante Moore is definitely a common case because of he's going to sit and learn underneath Dylan Gabriel for a season. And hopefully, once he starts taking over as QB1 in Eugene, the Ducks are still humming and they are a team to beat in the Big Ten. But how about a guy like Malachi Nelson? Anybody remember him? Number 1 quarterback prospect, commits to USC. Anybody know where he is? Boise State. Not saying that NIL funds didn't help get him there, but I am saying that it definitely doesn't hurt. How about KJ Jefferson? KJ Jefferson was a multi-year starter in the SEC, and now he's hitching his wagon to Gus Malzahn. Good proof of concept, absolutely, but Orlando, those boosters, and what UCF could be in the foreseeable future, especially in the Big 12, yeah, that probably costs you a little bit of money. Probably costs you a little bit of money to go get Aiden Childs, too. Probably costs you a little bit of money to go get Malik Murphy in Durham, North Carolina with Manny Diaz as the head coach. The bottom line is that regardless of how these quarterbacks land at these schools, money is going to talk, and NIL is going to be a benefit. And for years, we knew that Miami did things different. It was why they were at one point the staple of college football. Seriously, go back to the 80s and the 90s. What did people talk about? The U. The U. Them in Nebraska. Who was the pioneer team and the face of college football? Was it those down at Coral Gables, or was it in the heartlands of Lincoln? Which team reigned supreme? And every few years, you had a couple of breakout studs, whether that be Tennessee, whether that be Alabama, whether that be USC, whoever that may be in the process. Those were the two fixtures of college football. And people didn't like that. People didn't like the way they went about recruiting. They didn't like the way about how they went with hiring coaches. They didn't like about the way that they built their roster. And they grew to have such disdain in college football. You can hear that disdain for Miami. I completely understand, especially if you are in the ACC and you're a team like NC State saying, we've built our roster good enough to contend for a spot in the college football playoff. Meanwhile, Miami's out here with their boosters and their funds and the NIL collective, and they're starting to spend money on a quarterback that wants to go to the pros. Well, if that's the way you view it, that's the way you view it. But now you just got to beat them on Saturdays and strut your stuff instead of complaining, because this is not changing anytime soon. And it's not changing just at Miami. It's not changing at any programs. For any Ole Miss fan out there that says right now, hey, Cole, Miami is doing it wrong. Have you looked at what you've added in via the portal? I can tell you this much. Not every player is hitching their wagon to Lane Kiffin because they like the vision. That's part of it, but the other part is certainly helping out with the Grove Collective. Texas, they're starting to get some premier names. Isaiah Bond just committed today. Do you think that he just came at the asking price of free and the adaptability to play in the SEC for a new team? No, that didn't happen. And it's not going to happen at places like Tennessee, and it's not going to happen at places like Florida State, and it's not going to happen at places like Miami, like Alabama, like anywhere in college football. So to anybody out there that is saying right now that Miami did it wrong, I hate to break it to you. Unless your team is one of those rosters that added in a bunch of talent, that did not pay a single bit, and you did not see any social media tweets from your NIL collectives, you follow the same pathway to get here because it's an open playing field, and that's how you have to do to survive in today's college football. For Miami, I would say right now, you're not going to be the favorites to win the ACC. You could be a favorite. You could be a contender. You could be one of those teams that people look at because Cam Ward's coming back, and you like your last two recruiting classes and say, expectations are to make it to Charlotte. I could see that. I think a lot of people could see that. And for good reason, too. This roster, you feel very confident in, especially when you were able to add in some players during the early signing period. But I still think Florida State is very good. I still think NC State's going to hang around. I still think with what you look at, potentially now with Jeff Collins going to UNC, that defense should be a lot better. So maybe in Chapel Hill, they're ringing the bells and they're reigning supreme. A lot of that could happen. Clemson still exists. But I do think that you are a player. And I do think that in a world of college football where you look at these teams that aren't going to be good enough to make it to Atlanta or Charlotte or Arlington or Indianapolis, those are going to be teams that end up having great seasons. And if they get hot at the right time and they end up putting up great numbers and ample production and solidified quality wins, they're going to be in the running for the college football playoff, especially those big brand teams. One like Miami falls in line. So if Cam Ward has a very rocky start in week 1, but then by week 8, he is humming, he is clicking, and everything seems to be rolling with the right momentum, Miami is going to start gaining some ground, and we're going to be talking about them as a team that probably has to travel in the first round, but to go to the college football playoff. Isn't that what you want, Hurricane fans, with Mario Cristobal? Isn't that why you paid a sum of money to bring him down from Eugene and back home? Mama always says you got to go home. Guess what? This is what home's supposed to be. Creating an identity that is sustainable. And getting a guy like Cam Ward probably fast forward that step, I would say at least 1 year. There's pressure. There has to be pressure in Coral Gables. You spend a lot, you have the NIL funds, and you have a roster that feels like it's contending. And 7-5 is not going to cut it anymore. And for Mario, you don't get quarterbacks like Cam Ward always coming through your disposal. Just like when you were at Oregon and you had Justin Herbert. You don't always get that type of passer. So whatever works, whatever you think is the best plan of action, that's what you have to do. But for anybody out there saying that Miami did it wrong, this is the new normal of college football. Until the ink is dried and until the fat lady sings, everything is on the table, including Cam Ward saying, you know what? The NFL, it's a great job. But winning an ACC title, winning a national championship, being a part of a culture like the U, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and sign up for that one. And if you want to pay me a couple million in the process, well, let's just go ahead and call it a win-win for all parties involved.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.